The corridor stretches ahead, quiet and empty. Somewhere deep within the structure, a low hum persists, steady and patient, as if the walls themselves are breathing. Tonight, the night shift begins at the Citadel's aviary. Settle into the stillness. Let your bed hold you softly. Let your thoughts grow quiet and distant. Let the last of your effort melt away. This is canon and calm. Let us begin. The Presidium never truly sleeps, but it does sigh as the artificial sun fades toward the lower wards. The glow of the station ring takes on a cool indigo hue, casting long shadows across the manicured lawns. My boots click softly against the white polymer of the walkway, a lone percussion in the hollow space of the aviary. To my left, the great waterfalls of the Citadel continue their endless descent through the tiered gardens. They are not water alone, but a calculated mixture of minerals and recycled moisture, designed to sustain life from 1,000 different stars. I can feel the mist against my skin, a fine, cooling presence that smells of rain and ozone. I reach the first control kiosk, its interface glowing with a soft cyan light in the dimness. The haptic feedback is a gentle pulse against my fingertips as I cycle through the irrigation logs. Everything is functional, exactly as the keepers intended, though they are nowhere to be seen this evening. I step off the main path and onto the soft, mossy earth of the Tuchankan fern grove. These plants are hardy, with thick, leathery fronds that feel like cured hide under the hand. They were bred to survive radioactive winds, yet here they thrive, under the careful gaze of the station atmospheric processors. The station ring arcs overhead, a silver ribbon against the void of the Serpent Nebula. Down here, in the heart of the Presidium, the scale of the Citadel feels less like a fortress and more like a garden. I adjust the strap of my toolkit, feeling the familiar weighted presence against my shoulder. The first task of the evening is always the same, a quiet measure of the passing hours. I must check the nutrient levels in the koi ponds near the Embassy Row. The fish are a gift from Earth, a splash of orange and white in the blue-tinted environment. They glide through the liquid with a slow, deliberate grace that I find myself mimicking. I kneel by the face of the basin, the stone cool and damp beneath my knees. The water is clear, filtered by machines humming deep within the station hull, a low note that never quite stops. I dip a sensor into the pool, watching the data stream across my Omni tool in a flurry of orange icons. Nitrates are steady, oxygen is optimal, and the temperature is held at a perfect 20 degrees. I toss a handful of pellets into the water, watching the exterior plane break as the fish rise to feed. It is a quiet ritual, a small act of care in a place built on the grand designs of a storied civilization. Moving on, I enter the primary aviary dome, where the canopy is thick with foliage from a dozen different planets. The scent is overwhelming, a mixture of damp soil, blooming jasmine, and the metallic tang of the life support. I look up, squinting through the leaves at the artificial sky, far above the glass. Somewhere up there, the Council is debating the fate of the galaxy in their high towers. But down here, the only thing that matters is the health of a dying orchid from Thessia. I find the flower in its specialized climate pod, a bubble of warmth in the cool hall. Its petals are a pale, shimmering violet, almost translucent in the shadow. I check the humidity levels, noting a slight dip in the afternoon cycle, and make the necessary adjustments. The misting unit above me hisses, releasing a fine cloud of moisture into the atmosphere. It blankets the orchid, and for a moment the flower seems to glow with a life of its own. It is a fragile beauty, a reminder of the worlds we strive to protect within these metal walls. Further down the path, the ground turns to red sand imported from the deserts of Sir Kesh. Here the heat lamps are tuned to a different frequency, casting a warm amber light over the succulents. My skin feels the sudden change in temperature, a dry heat that makes the eyes itch in the haze. I walk slowly, my boots leaving shallow impressions in the sand as I move through the heat. I am looking for signs of the subterranean beetles that help aerate the soil. They are small, iridescent creatures that move with a frantic energy, a sharp contrast to the stillness of the plants. I spot one near the base of a jagged rock, its shell catching the amber light. It scurries into a crevice, disappearing into the murk of the undergrowth. I make a note of its activity, satisfied that the ecosystem is maintaining its delicate balance without my interference. The path leads me toward the edge of the aviary, where the glass floor looks down into the lower levels. Far below, the lights of the Zakera ward twinkle like a second galaxy in the measureless distance. It is a view that always makes me feel small, yet strangely connected to the millions of souls below. I lean against the railing, the metal cold and solid against my palms. The hum of the station is louder here, a deep, resonant tone that vibrates in the chest. It is the pulse of the Citadel, the heartbeat of a station that has survived for immemorial ages. I take a deep breath, filling my lungs with the filtered atmosphere of the quiet hours. It is clean, perhaps too clean, lacking the grit and spice of a natural world. But it is what we have, a managed paradise in the middle of the stars, where we can rest. I turn my attention back to the task at hand as the evening deepens. There is a cluster of bioluminescent moss near the exit that needs pruning. It grows aggressively, its soft blue light threatening to overwhelm the more delicate species that grow nearby. I pull out a pair of shears, the metal clicking as I test the blade in the dimness. I begin to trim the glowing edges, working with a steady hand and a focused mind. The moss feels spongy, almost like velvet, and it leaves a faint glowing residue on my gloves as I work. It is meticulous work, the kind that allows the mind to wander and reflect. I think about the people who walked these paths thousands of years ago, before we arrived. Did they feel this same sense of peace, or were they too busy with the business of empires to notice the moss? The aviary is a place outside of time, a sanctuary from the politics of the galaxy. Here, the seasons are programmed, and the weather is a choice made by a computer. Yet, there is a persistence to the life here that feels honest and true in its own way. I finish the pruning and pack my tools away into the leather bag. The moss looks better now, its light contained and purposeful against the dark soil. I stand up, stretching my back, and look around the silent dome, enjoying the solitude. The quiet hours are the best time to be here, away from the crowds. There are no tourists, no dignitaries, just the plants and the silence and the hum of the machines. It is a privilege to be the one who looks after this place while the rest of the station dreams. I walk toward the next sector, the sound of my footsteps echoing in the corridor. There is a bridge ahead, spanning a deep ravine filled with tropical ferns and dense vines. The bridge is narrow, made of a reinforced glass that makes it feel like walking on air over the green. I cross it slowly, looking down at the lush depths where the light does not reach. The ferns are swaying, moved by a gentle breeze generated by the ventilation fans in the ceiling. It is a convincing illusion of nature, one that I have come to appreciate over the years of service. On the other side of the bridge, the environment shifts again into a cooler climate. This is the alpine section, where the atmosphere is crisp and smells of pine and damp stone. The trees here are tall and straight. Their needles are deep dark green against the white walls. I check the temperature gauge on the wall, its display glowing a soft orange. It is exactly 10 degrees Celsius, the perfect climate for these mountain species from the high peaks. I find a bench and sit down for a moment, letting the chill wash over me and still my thoughts. It is a rare moment of rest in a long shift that stretches through the night. I close my eyes and listen to the murmur of the station all around me. I can hear the distant chime of an elevator and the faint whistle of wind through the conduits. The Citadel is a masterpiece of engineering, but it is the small things that make it a home. The way the light hits a leaf, the sound of water over stones, the smell of damp earth. These are the things that ground us in the measureless void of space. I stand up, ready to continue, as the light shifts toward the morning cycle. There is still much to do before the sun rises on the Presidium and the crowds return. I have to check the bird feeders and inspect the irrigation lines in the Arboretum. I move deeper into the alpine grove, the shadows of the trees stretching across the path. The light here is dim, provided by small recessed lamps that mimic the glow of a moon. It is a peaceful, storied place, full of the ghosts of 1,000 worlds and their stories. I reach the bird feeders, which are hidden among the branches, out of sight. They are filled with a specialized seed mix designed to provide the necessary nutrients for the various species. I refill them one by one, the seeds clicking like rain against the plastic. A small, feathered creature lands on a nearby branch, watching me with curious eyes. It is a finch from Earth. Its feathers are bright, cheerful yellow in the dim light. It chirps once, a clear, sharp sound that cuts through the stillness, and then it is gone. I smile, a small private gesture in the solitude of the grove. It is good to have company, even if it is just a bird in the quiet hours. I finish the feeders and move on, my mind already turning to the next task as I walk. The Arboretum is the largest section of the aviary, a sprawling expanse of trees. It is a complex ecosystem requiring constant monitoring and adjustment to maintain the balance. I enter through a set of double doors, the atmosphere becoming warmer and more humid. The trees here are massive, their branches reaching toward the high ceiling of the dome. Some have leaves as large as umbrellas, while others are covered in delicate, lace-like foliage. It is a forest of wonders, a testament to the diversity of life in the landscape of the galaxy. I begin my inspection walking along the winding paths through the thicket. I am looking for any signs of stress or disease, any yellowing leaves or drooping branches. The trees are healthy, their bark firm and their growth steady under the artificial sun. I stop to examine a Turian flame tree, its bark a deep, scorched red, like embers. It requires a specific balance of minerals in the soil, which I check with a portable probe. The readings are within the acceptable range, much to my relief, as I record the data. The flame tree is a beautiful, hardy species, capable of growing in the harshest environments. Here, it is a centerpiece of the arboretum, its vibrant colors a striking contrast to the green. It persists even in this artificial world, far from its home. I continue my walk, the forest closing in around me as I move deeper. The light is dappled, filtered through the thick canopy above onto the path. It is easy to forget that I am on a space station millions of kilometers from the nearest planet, in the silence. The illusion is perfect, a sanctuary of life in the cold vacuum of the stars. And as I move through the trees, I feel a sense of purpose in my work. I am the guardian of this place, the one who ensures that it continues to thrive for those who follow. I reach the center of the arboretum, where a large fountain stands in the clearing. The water cascades down a series of stone tiers, creating a soothing, melodic tone. I sit on the edge of the fountain, watching the water ripple and dance in the light. The night is still young, and there is much more to see in the gardens. But for now, I am content to sit here in the quiet, surrounded by the beauty of the aviary. The station hums, the water flows, and the galaxy turns far beyond the glass, as I prepare for the marshlands. I stand from the stone basin, the cool moisture of the fountain still clinging to my palms as I leave the center of the grove behind. The transition from the dry arboretum to the marshlands is marked by a weighted, invisible curtain of heat that clings to my skin. It is a necessary shift, a deliberate change in the climate controls to accommodate the species that thrive in the damp. My boots squelch softly against the permeable floor, a measured pace that carries me toward the first filtration grate in the dimness. The atmosphere here is thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying moss, a natural cycle that feeds the roots of the mangrove-like structures. I adjust the collar of my uniform, feeling the humidity settle into the fabric as I walk. This section of the aviary is inspired by the homeworld of the Hanar, a place of water and light and quiet reflection. The path narrows, winding between pools of dark water that ripple with the movement of hidden life. I reach the first sensor array, its interface glowing with a soft azure light in the half-light of the evening. My fingers move across the screen, checking the levels of oxygen and nutrients in the water. 122 sensors, all reporting green on my handheld display. It is a relief to see the systems functioning so well after the fluctuations we experienced last week during the power surge. The station is a delicate machine, a balance of technology and nature that requires constant vigilance. A small, iridescent bird, no larger than my thumb, darts across my path and vanishes into the reeds. It is a Kaye jewel-wing, a creature that lives only in the most humid environments, and its presence is a good sign. I pause to listen to the murmur of the water as it flows through the filtration pipes hidden beneath the rocks. The tone is steady, a low vibration that resonates through the floor and into my bones. I move to the edge of a large pond where the water is still and clear, reflecting the glow of the Presidium. High above the dome, the lights of the skyscrapers shine like stars, a reminder of the sprawling city that surrounds us. But here in the wetlands, the environment is quiet and secluded, a sanctuary from the bustle of the station. I take a deep breath, the dampness filling my lungs as I look out over the water. There is a leaf caught in the intake of the primary filter, a minor obstruction that I must clear before it causes a problem. I reach down, my fingers brushing the cool surface of the metal as I pull the debris away. The water flows freely once more, a small victory in the quiet hours of my shift. It is these small tasks, these mundane acts of maintenance, that keep the aviary alive and thriving. I continue along the path, the mist becoming thicker as I approach the sprayers, which hum with a gentle intensity. The fog rolls over the ground, obscuring the path and making the world feel even smaller and more intimate. I walk through the haze, the droplets of water cooling my face as I move deeper into the marsh. The plants here are different from those in the arboretum, with broad waxy leaves that shed the moisture in long silver streaks. I find a bench made of recycled starship plating, tucked away in a corner of the wetlands, and I sit for a moment. My legs are tired, the weight of the shift beginning to press on me as the hours pass. I watch the bioluminescent algae in the pond, its green light pulsing slowly in a measureless cycle. It is a beautiful sight, a reminder of the wonder that can be found in the most unexpected places. I check my watch, noting that I'm halfway through my inspection of the marshlands and still on schedule. There is a sense of satisfaction in the work, a feeling of being part of something larger than myself in the landscape of the Citadel. I am the caretaker of this forest, the one who ensures that the birds have a home and the plants have what they need. It is a quiet responsibility, but one that I carry with pride in the solitude of the late hour. I stand up and stretch, my joints popping in the stillness as I prepare to move on. The next section of the wetlands is home to the larger waterfowl, species that require more space and deeper pools to thrive. I can hear their calls in the distance, a series of low honks and whistles that echo through the dome. They are restless, perhaps sensing the change in the light as the station moves through its cycle. I walk toward the deeper pools, the ground becoming more uneven and rocky as I leave the paved path behind. I have to be careful here, my boots slipping occasionally on the moss-covered stones that line the water's edge. The light is dimmer in this part of the aviary, the artificial moonlight filtered through the thick canopy of trees above. It is a place of shadows and mystery, where the boundaries between the natural and the artificial become blurred. I stop to examine a cluster of blue lilies, their petals glowing with a faint, ethereal light in the murk. They are a gift from the Asari consulate, a species that is said to bloom only in the presence of pure water. Their health is a testament to the quality of our filtration systems and the care that we put into our work. I touch one of the petals, its texture like silk against my skin, and I feel a moment of peace. Further on, I encounter a keeper, its multi-limbed form moving with a strange fluid grace as it tends to a control panel. We do not speak, for the keepers are silent and focused, their purpose known only to themselves. I watch it for a moment, fascinated by its efficiency and its dedication to the maintenance of the station. It is a reminder that I am not alone in my work, that there are others who care for this place in their own way. I reach the final pool in the marshlands, a wide expanse of water that is home to a flock of earth swans. They are graceful creatures, their white feathers standing out against the dark water as they glide through the reeds. I watch them for a while, their movements slow and deliberate as they search for food in the shallows. They seem at home here, far from the world of their ancestors in this artificial paradise. I check the nutrient dispensers, ensuring that they are full and functioning correctly for the morning feeding. The machines hum as I interact with them, a familiar sound that brings a sense of comfort in the quiet. Everything is in order. The levels are correct, and the systems are stable as I finish my tasks. I take a final look around the wetlands, a sense of accomplishment filling me as I prepare to leave. The air is beginning to cool as I move toward the exit, the humidity dropping as the climate controls adjust for the next zone. I walk through the double doors, the transition marked by a sudden crispness that makes me shiver. I am heading toward the rocky cliffs now, a place of high perches and sharp winds, where the birds of prey make their home. The landscape is changing once more. The soft earth of the marsh replaced by the hard stone of the mountainside. I can feel the change in the atmosphere, a sense of openness and height that is a stark contrast to the enclosed world of the wetlands. The path climbs steeply, winding up the side of the artificial cliff toward the observation deck. I take my time, my breath coming in slow, steady draws as I ascend into the higher reaches of the dome. The view from the top is spectacular, a panorama of the entire aviary spread out below me like a map. I stop at the first overlook, leaning against the cold metal railing as I look out over the forest and the marsh. The station is quiet, the only sound the distant hum of the engines and the occasional cry of a bird. It is a moment of stillness, a chance to reflect on the beauty and the complexity of this place. The stars are visible through the glass, a measureless expanse of light and shadow that stretches out to the edge of the galaxy. I think about the people who live on the Citadel, the millions of souls who call this station home, and I feel a sense of connection. We are all part of this great experiment, this attempt to create a peaceful and prosperous society in the stars. And here in the aviary, we have created a small piece of that dream, a sanctuary of life and beauty in the cold vacuum of space. I turn away from the view, my mind already focused on the tasks ahead as I continue my climb. The rocky cliffs are a challenge, a place where the work is more physical and the environment more demanding than the gardens below. But I am ready for it. My body and my mind tuned to the tempo of the shift as I move into the final act. The birds of prey are waiting, their sharp eyes watching from the crags as I approach their domain. It is a different kind of beauty, a raw and powerful force that I must respect and care for in the silence of the night. The breeze up here has a sharper edge, carrying the scent of stone and ozone as I step onto the first of the high catwalks. The metal is cool beneath my boots, and the fans overhead create the artificial drafts required by the raptors. It is a lonely part of the station, far above the tourists and the gardens, where the only company is the occasional cry of a hunting bird. I reach the first ventilation grate, its metal face worn smooth by decades of filtered wind, and I kneeling to inspect the intake. A thin layer of grit has gathered in the corners, a mixture of feather dust and fine mineral powder from the synthetic cliffs. I use a soft brush to clear the debris, watching as the particles are sucked into the filtration system with a faint whistle. Moving further along the precipice, I can see the Varin hawk nests tucked into the crags, their structures a mix of twigs and scavenged plastics. The birds are motionless, their heads tucked beneath wings of iridescent grey as they sleep through the artificial evening. I check the integrity of the synthetic rock near the nests, ensuring no cracks have formed from the constant vibration of the station's engines. Each ledge is a plane of textured composite designed to mimic the basalt of the Krogan homeworld, providing the grip these predators need. I wipe down the feeding platforms, removing the remnants of the evening meal to prevent the growth of unwanted bacteria. The work is methodical, a steady pulse of cleaning and checking that keeps the habitat healthy for its inhabitants. One of the larger raptors stirs as I pass, its golden eyes opening for a brief moment before it returns to its rest. I keep my movements fluid and predictable, a familiar presence in its domain that offers no threat. There is a mutual understanding between the shift workers and the animals, a shared existence in the quiet hours of the Citadel. I find the hydration basins tucked into a sheltered alcove, the water trickling over the stone face with a gentle murmur. I check the pH levels with a handheld scanner, the blue light reflecting off the ripples in the small pool. The minerals must be perfectly balanced to maintain the health of the bird's plumage and bones. Behind a hidden panel in the cliffside, the thermal generators hum with a low-frequency tone that I can feel in my chest. These units create the warm updrafts that allow the birds to soar without effort, even within the confines of the dome. I adjust the output by a few degrees, matching the seasonal profile programmed for this month. I lean over the railing of the maintenance bridge, looking down at the sprawling landscape of the forest below. From this height, the trees look like a carpet of deep moss, and the streams are silver threads winding through the greenery. The scale of the aviary is truly immense, a testament to the engineering prowess of the Council races. Far below, the lights of the Presidium are visible through the gaps in the foliage, a reminder of the bustling city that surrounds this sanctuary. It feels as though I am in a different universe, a place of nature and silence suspended in the heart of a galactic hub. The contrast is something I reflect upon often during these long hours on the high peaks. I notice a slight flicker in one of the overhead sky panels, a tiny glitch in the simulation of the stars. I make a note of the coordinate on my datapad so the technicians can recalibrate the projection during the next maintenance cycle. Even here, in this artificial paradise, the illusion requires constant care to remain seamless. I enter the nursery section of the cliffs, where the younger birds are kept in climate-controlled enclosures. The atmosphere is warmer here, and the smell of clean straw and heated stone is thick. I check the monitors for each unit, ensuring the humidity and temperature are within the narrow margins required for the fledglings. One of the chicks, a Tuchankan shrike, chirps softly as I check its vitals, its feathers still a downy fluff of white. I offer it a small piece of nutrient-rich meat from my kit, watching as it swallows the morsel with a quick snap of its beak. It will be several months before it is ready to join the others on the open ledges. I move back out into the open, the chill of the high peaks returning to greet me as I continue my rounds. The silence of the upper reaches is profound, broken only by the distant thrum of the station's life support. It is a meditative environment, one that encourages a slow and thoughtful approach to every task. I inspect the safety nets that stretch across the deeper chasms, their cables taut and free of any visible wear. These nets are a precaution designed to catch any bird that might struggle during its first flight, or a worker who loses their footing. I run my gloved hand along the tensioners, feeling the strength of the woven fibers. I recall reading about the construction of these cliffs, how the designers used geological surveys from a dozen worlds to create this hybrid landscape. Every crack and crevice was intentional, placed to provide the perfect nesting sites for a diverse range of species. It is a work of art as much as a feat of engineering, a time-worn masterpiece of ecological design. I take a moment to rest on a stone bench, looking out at the horizon where the dome meets the station's hull. The stars out there are real, not projections, and their light is steady and cold against the glass. I feel a sense of peace in this high place, a connection to the wider cosmos that is hard to find in the crowded corridors below. Through the soles of my boots I can feel the cadence of the Citadel's machinery, a constant reminder of the technology that sustains us. This mountain is not made of earth and stone, but of metal and circuitry, cloaked in a layer of synthetic beauty. It is a fragile equilibrium, one that I am proud to help maintain during the late hour. I prepare the first thermal cycle for the morning, setting the timers to gradually increase the warmth as the artificial sun rises. The birds will wake to a gentle breeze, a signal that it is time to take to the sky once more. My work here is nearly finished, the high peaks secure and ready for the day ahead. I gather my tools and begin the descent, my path taking me through a narrow tunnel carved into the heart of the cliff. The walls are damp here, and the tone of my footsteps changes as I move from metal to stone. I am heading toward the final section of my shift, the dense jungle of the lower canopy. As I emerge from the tunnel, the humidity rises to meet me, and the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers fills the atmosphere. The transition is always a shock to the senses, a shift from the sterile heights to the vibrant life of the forest floor. I take a deep breath, readying myself for the tasks that await in the green shadows below. The transition into the understory is marked by a shift in the very weight of the atmosphere. Down here the humidity clings to the skin, a warm and moist embrace that speaks of growth and decay. I adjust the collar of my fatigues, feeling the dampness already easing into the fabric. My boots sink slightly into the soft, synthetic loam that covers the floor of this artificial wilderness. It is a mixture of organic matter and crushed minerals, designed to mimic the forest floors of a dozen different homeworlds. I can smell the sharp tang of pine needles and the sweet, cloying scent of tropical orchids. I reach the first of the irrigation nodes, a small silver dome peeking out from beneath a cluster of broad leaves. I tap the interface, checking the flow rates for the last 4 hours. Everything is within the expected parameters, the water moving through the hidden pipes with a quiet, steady pulse. The light in this part of the aviary is filtered through the thick canopy above, creating a dappled pattern on the ground. It is a soft emerald glow, punctuated by the occasional beam of artificial sunlight that manages to pierce through the leaves. I watch a small blue-winged bird flutter from one branch to another, its movements quick and graceful in the half-light. This lower level is home to the species that prefer the shelter of the trees, those that rarely venture into the open sky. I move with care, avoiding the delicate moss that grows along the edges of the path. This moss is a bio-indicator, its health a direct reflection of the station's atmospheric quality. I find a fallen branch blocking a secondary drainage channel and stoop to clear it. The wood is damp and slick, covered in a fine layer of grey lichen. I place it in a composting bin where it will be broken down and returned to the soil in a matter of weeks. The cycle of life here is accelerated, a necessity of the limited space and resources of the Citadel. Every leaf that falls, every creature that perishes, is part of a carefully managed system. It is a delicate balance, one that requires constant monitoring and occasional intervention. I continue my walk, the hum of the ventilation fans a distant, soothing murmur. These fans are hidden behind artificial rock faces, their blades spinning silently to keep the atmosphere fresh. I check the intake grills, ensuring that no stray feathers or debris have been sucked into the machinery. The path leads me toward a small clearing, where a shallow pool of water reflects the dim green light. This is a drinking station for the ground-dwelling birds, its edges lined with smooth, river-worn stones. I kneel by the water, checking the pH levels with a handheld sensor. The reading is perfect, a testament to the efficiency of the filtration units buried deep beneath my feet. I watch as a pair of small, flightless birds emerge from the ferns to drink. They are cautious, their heads bobbing as they scan the area for any sign of danger. I remain still, allowing them to quench their thirst in peace before I move on. There is a sense of companionship in these moments, a shared understanding between the worker and the inhabitants of this enclave. We are all part of the same artificial ecosystem, bound together by the technology that sustains us. I reach the base of a towering redwood, its trunk so wide that it would take 5 people to encircle it. This tree is a marvel of bioengineering, its core a hollow tube that carries water and nutrients to the upper branches. I press my ear against the bark, listening to the faint gurgle of the internal pumps. It is a strange sensation knowing that this giant is as much a machine as it is a living thing. The designers of the Citadel were masters of blending the organic with the synthetic. They created a place where nature could thrive within the cold hull of a space station. I check the tension on the support cables that anchor the tree to the station's primary structure. These cables are made of a high-tensile alloy designed to withstand the stresses of the station's rotation. They are taut and secure, their grey surfaces reflecting the soft light of the canopy. I move toward the edge of the forest, where the trees give way to a series of terraced gardens. These gardens are used for research, where botanists study the effects of different light cycles on exotic flora. I walk along the stone paths, my footsteps echoing softly in the quiet. The plants here are diverse, ranging from the crystalline flowers of the Asari homeworld to the hardy shrubs of the Krogan plains. Each one requires a specific set of conditions, from the temperature of the soil to the intensity of the light. I check the environmental controls for each terrace, making sure that the settings are correct for the evening. I notice a small orchid that has begun to wilt, its petals drooping toward the ground. I adjust the misting nozzle above it, providing a gentle spray of nutrient-rich water. Within minutes, the petals begin to perk up, the plant responding to the sudden influx of moisture. It is a small victory, but one that brings a sense of satisfaction to my shift. These quiet acts of care are what keep the aviary blooming, a constant effort to preserve the beauty of the natural world. I take a moment to admire the orchid, its vibrant purple color, a stark contrast to the green of the ferns. I look up at the canopy, where the lights are beginning to dim for the simulated evening. The transition is gradual, a slow fading of the emerald glow into a deep sapphire blue. It is a signal for the day-dwelling birds to find their roosts and for the nocturnal species to stir. I can hear the first calls of the night hunters, a series of low whistles and clicks that echo through the trees. These creatures are the guardians of the undergrowth, keeping the insect population in check. I move with more caution now, not wanting to disturb their hunt. The atmosphere is cooler now, the humidity dropping as the misting systems scale back. I can feel the change in the breeze, a gentle flow of air that carries the scent of damp earth and blooming night flowers. It is a peaceful time, a moment of reflection before the final tasks of my shift. I check my chronometer, noting that I have 3 hours remaining before the morning crew arrives. There is still much to do, from the cleaning of the filtration beds to the inspection of the emergency exits. I turn back toward the heart of the forest, my flashlight cutting a path through the gathering shadows. The trees seem to close in around me, their branches forming a protective arch over the path. I feel a sense of belonging in this place, a connection to the life that thrives within these walls. It is a privilege to be a part of this world, to be the one who watches over it while others sleep. I reach the central maintenance hub, a small, circular building hidden within a cluster of giant ferns. I enter the code, and the door slides open with a soft hiss of hydraulics. Inside, the walls are lined with monitors and control panels, their screens glowing with a steady, amber light. I take a seat at the console, beginning the diagnostic tests for the primary life support systems. The data scrolls across the screen, a series of graphs and numbers that tell the story of the aviary's health. Everything is functioning perfectly, the station's heart beating with a steady, reliable measure. I monitor the oxygen levels, the carbon dioxide scrubbers, and the waste reclamation units. These systems are the unsung heroes of the Citadel, the invisible hands that keep us all alive. I record the findings in my log, my pen scratching softly against the paper. There is a certain comfort in the routine, a sense of order in the face of the measureless void outside. In here, everything has a place and a purpose, a role to play in the grand design. I finish my report and lean back in the chair, taking a moment to rest my eyes. The hum of the machinery is a constant companion, a reminder of the technology that makes all of this possible. It is a quiet, unassuming sound, but one that is essential to the life of the station. I listen to the cadence of the pumps, the steady flow of water, and the soft whir of the fans. I prepare a cup of tea, the warmth of the mug a welcome comfort against the chill of the maintenance hub. I sip the liquid slowly, letting the heat spread through my body. The tea is a blend of herbs grown in the very gardens I just walked through, a taste of the forest in a single cup. I look out the small window of the hub, watching as the blue light of the canopy deepens into a rich, velvety shade. The stars are visible through the gaps in the leaves, their light steady and unchanging. It is a sight that never fails to fill me with a sense of wonder, a reminder of the scale of the universe we inhabit. I finish my tea and set the mug aside, ready to begin the next phase of my rounds. The maintenance hub is a sanctuary, but my work lies out there, among the trees and the birds. I step back into the forest, the door closing behind me with a quiet thud. The shade is deeper now, the only light coming from my flashlight and the occasional glow of a bioluminescent fungus. These fungi grow in clusters along the trunks of the trees, their soft blue light providing a guide for the nocturnal creatures. I follow the trail of light, my footsteps muffled by the thick layer of moss. I reach the filtration beds, a series of large, stone-lined tanks where the water is purified. I check the layers of sand and gravel, ensuring that they are free of any blockages. The water flows through the tanks with a gentle, rhythmic murmur, a sound that is both soothing and constant. I spend the next hour cleaning the filters, removing the fine silt and debris that has accumulated. It is a slow and methodical task, but one that is essential to the health of the aviary. I work with a steady pace, my movements practiced and efficient. As I finish the last tank, I notice a small silver fish darting through the water. It is a species from the Solarian homeworld, known for its ability to survive in both fresh and salt water. I watch it for a moment, its scales shimmering in the light of my flashlight. The fish is a reminder of the diversity of life that calls the Citadel home. From the smallest insect to the largest bird, every creature has a place in this artificial heaven. I close the access hatch to the filtration beds and move on to the next task. The bridge ahead spans a narrow ravine, its surface made of a durable, non-slip material. I walk across it, looking down into the dimness below. A small stream flows through the bottom of the ravine, its water splashing over the rocks with a cheerful sound. I check the structural integrity of the bridge, running my hand along the handrails and checking the anchor points. Everything is secure, the bridge as solid as the day it was installed. I move across to the other side, where the path begins to climb toward the middle canopy. The climb is gradual, the path winding through a series of switchbacks. I can feel the muscles in my legs working as I move, a pleasant ache that speaks of a productive shift. The atmosphere is thinner here, the humidity giving way to a cool, crisp breeze. I reach a small observation deck where I can look out over the entire lower level of the aviary. The forest floor is a sea of green, the tops of the ferns swaying gently in the breeze. It is a beautiful sight, a testament to the hard work and dedication of the keepers who maintain it. I take a moment to breathe in the fresh air, feeling a sense of peace and contentment. My shift is nearing its end, and the forest is ready for the new day. I begin the final descent toward the main exit, my path taking me through one last grove of flowering trees. The scent of the blossoms is overwhelming, a sweet and heady perfume that fills the atmosphere. I walk through the grove, the petals falling like snow around me. It is a fitting end to my time in the lower canopy, a final moment of beauty before I return to the world of metal and glass. I reach the main airlock, the heavy door, a stark contrast to the natural beauty of the forest. I enter the code and wait for the cycle to complete. As the door opens, I take one last look back at the trees, their silhouettes dark against the blue light of the canopy. The transition back to the station's corridors is always a bit jarring, the bright lights and sterile surfaces a sharp contrast to the forest. I walk toward the locker room, my boots clicking on the metal floor. I am tired, but it is a good kind of tired, the kind that comes from a job well done. I change out of my damp fatigues and into my civilian clothes, the fabric feeling light and dry against my skin. I stow my tools in my locker, making sure that everything is in its place for the next shift. I'm ready to head home to find a quiet place to rest and recover. As I walk toward the transport hub, I think about the birds waking up in the canopy, the first light of the artificial sun touching their feathers. They will take to the sky once more, their songs filling the atmosphere with a chorus of life. And tonight I will return to watch over them once more, a silent guardian in the quiet hours. The elevator rises with a muted electric whine, carrying me away from the lower levels. Through the reinforced glass, the lights of the Presidium blur into long, shimmering streaks of amber and violet. It is a lonely ascent, one that marks the transition from the humid floor to the thin, chilled reaches of the high spires. I step out onto the primary gantry, where the oxygen is crisp and carries a faint, metallic tang. Here the trees are different, their branches spindly and reaching like silver fingers toward the dome. The moisture in this zone is kept at a precise minimum, preventing the delicate electronics of the upper sensors from corroding in the damp. My boots make a dull, hollow thud against the perforated metal of the walkway. Below, the lower canopy is nothing but a sea of charcoal-colored clouds, hiding the routes and the rivers I walked earlier. Up here, the silence is more profound, broken only by the distant, pulsing cycling of the atmospheric scrubbers. I reach for my first checkpoint, a small terminal embedded in the trunk of a bioengineered cedar. The screen glows with a soft cyan light, illuminating the fine dust motes dancing in the atmosphere. I input my credentials, the tactile buttons clicking with a satisfying mechanical precision under my thumb. Everything is within the expected parameters, the nutrient flow holding steady at 98%. I take a moment to look at the bark of the cedar, which feels like cold, textured stone. These trees were designed to thrive in the low-pressure environment of the upper aviary, their leaves a deep obsidian blue. I move further along the gantry, my flashlight cutting a narrow path through the dimness. The beam catches the iridescent feathers of a sleeping raptor, perched high on a structural beam. It does not stir, its head tucked beneath a wing that looks like polished chrome in the artificial moonlight. There is a certain peace in these higher altitudes, far above the politics and noise of the station. Here, the only concern is the balance of gases and the integrity of the glass. I stop to inspect a pressure valve, my fingers tracing the cold curve of the pipe to check for any hairline fractures. I find none, the metal feeling smooth and unyielding beneath my touch. I turn the manual override slightly, listening for the hiss of escaping steam that signals a successful purge. The resonance of the escaping vapor is a sharp, clean note that echoes through the empty space. Further ahead, the walkway narrows as it winds around the central support column of the spire. This pillar is the spine of the aviary, a massive cylinder of reinforced alloy that stretches toward the very top of the station. I can feel the subtle vibration of the massive fans spinning deep within the core. I pause at a viewing port, pressing my forehead against the cool, transparent pane. Out there, the arm of the Citadel stretches across the stars, a glittering bridge of civilization in the immense void. It looks so fragile from this height, a delicate lattice of light held together by physics and will. I turn my attention back to the interior, where the shadow of a large fern falls across the path. The leaves are broad and leathery, designed to capture every stray photon from the distant sun lamps. I brush past them, the friction creating a dry, rustling noise that seems loud in the stillness. My next task involves the misting array, a network of fine nozzles that provide hydration to the upper foliage. I open the maintenance hatch, revealing a complex web of translucent tubing and brass fittings. One of the tubes has become pinched, restricted by a stray vine that has grown where it should not. I carefully untangle the plant, its stems feeling supple and slightly sticky. Once free, the water begins to flow again, a soft murmur returning to the line. I watch as the nozzles overhead release a fine, ghostly spray that vanishes into the atmosphere before it can hit the floor. This high-altitude fog is essential for the mosses that cling to the spire walls. I run my hand over a patch of the growth, finding it spongy and laden with cool moisture. It is a vibrant neon emerald, a splash of color against the gray industrial backdrop of the station. I check my chronometer, noting that I am exactly halfway through this portion of my route. The pace is steady, a measured march through a landscape that feels both natural and entirely manufactured. I find a small bench bolted to the railing and take a seat for a brief moment of reflection. From this vantage point, I can see the lights of the maintenance drones as they drift through the canopy. They look like fireflies, their tiny sensors blinking red and green as they scan for pests or rot. They are my only companions in this sector, tireless workers who never need to stop for breath. I stand up, my joints popping quietly in the cool environment. I follow the path toward the North Spire Bridge, a long, exposed span that crosses the open center of the aviary. The wind is stronger here, a manufactured breeze designed to simulate the high-altitude currents of a terrestrial world. It pulls at my jacket, the fabric flapping with a low, snapping cadence. I keep one hand on the railing, the metal vibrating with the energy of the station. Looking down, I see the distant, flickering lights of the Presidium floor, miles below my feet. I reach the center of the bridge, where a large sensor suite is mounted to the underside of the walkway. I kneel, opening my toolkit to retrieve a specialized lens cleaner. The sensor is caked with a thin layer of salt crystals, a byproduct of the recycled water system. I work slowly, wiping the glass until it reflects the distant stars with perfect clarity. Each motion is deliberate, a quiet ritual that ensures the station's computers can see what is happening in this green lung. The work is simple, but it is the foundation upon which this entire ecosystem rests. As I finish, I notice a small blue flower growing in a crack in the walkway. It is a hardy thing, surviving on nothing but the mist and the stray light of the gantry. I leave it be a tiny spark of life in the midst of the machinery, and continue my walk toward the far side of the spire. The bridge ends at a weighted pressure door, its seals hissing with a sharp pneumatic release as they recognize my clearance. I step through, leaving the artificial wind behind for the controlled stillness of the North Spire interior. Here the temperature is kept precisely 7 degrees cooler than the central hub, a necessity for the alpine flora that thrives on these upper tiers. My breath hitches slightly in the crispness of the atmosphere, a sharp contrast to the humid warmth of the lower gardens. I walk along a corridor of curved glass, where the view of the station interior is partially obscured by a thick layer of frost. It forms intricate crystalline patterns that resemble the frozen seas of a distant moon. I trace a finger along the cold pane, feeling the vibration of the life support systems working somewhere deep within the walls. The silence here is different, more profound, as if the spire itself is holding its breath while the rest of the Citadel sleeps. Further ahead, I reach the primary irrigation manifold for the Alpine sector. It is a complex arrangement of copper pipes and glowing pressure gauges, all humming with a steady low-frequency tone. I check the primary dial, seeing that the pressure has dipped slightly below the recommended threshold. I reach for a large circular valve, my gloved hands finding purchase on the worn metal. With a slow, deliberate turn, I open the flow, feeling the resistance of the water as it surges through the line. The pipes groan in response, a series of metallic clicks echoing through the small chamber. I watch the needle on the gauge climb, its steady movement, a testament to the reliability of these age-old systems. Once it reaches the green zone, I lock the valve in place, the task complete. I move toward the observation deck, a wide, semicircular platform that juts out over the canopy. The floor is made of a composite material that softens the noise of my footsteps, making my progress nearly silent. I find a maintenance terminal near the railing and log my progress, the amber glow of the screen reflecting off my visor. The data shows that the oxygen levels are optimal, maintained by the thousands of trees that stretch out below me. Looking down, I see the silhouettes of the great redwoods, their tops swaying gently in the artificial currents. These trees were brought here as saplings during the first years of the station, a gift from the Asari people to symbolize growth and endurance. Now they stand as giants, their roots entwined with the very foundation of the Citadel. I can see the faint, pulsing lights of the Firefly drones as they weave between the branches, performing their endless scans. I descend a narrow spiral staircase, the metal steps feeling solid and cold under my boots. Each turn reveals a new perspective of the forest, the layers of green and brown blending into a tapestry of life. I reach a small landing where a group of avian nesting boxes are mounted to the wall. These are occupied by a species of iridescent songbird, their feathers shimmering even in the dimness of the evening. I move quietly, careful not to disturb their rest, though they seem accustomed to the presence of the night shift workers. One of them stirs, its tiny head peeking out from the circular opening of the box. Its eyes are dark and intelligent, watching me with a curious tilt. I offer a slow nod, a silent acknowledgement between two creatures sharing this quiet hour, before continuing my descent. At the base of the stairs, I find the nutrient infusion tanks, large cylinders of translucent plastic filled with a glowing violet liquid. This is the lifeblood of the aviary, a carefully balanced cocktail of minerals and enzymes that keeps the soil fertile. I check the levels, noting that Tank 4 is running low. I fetch a canister of concentrated salts from the nearby storage locker, its weight familiar and grounding. I pour the contents into the tank, the crystals dissolving instantly into the violet fluid. The mixture begins to swirl, a miniature nebula of color dancing within the cylinder. I watch the process for a moment, mesmerized by the slow, hypnotic movement. It is a reminder that even in this mechanical environment, there is a certain organic beauty to be found in the most mundane of tasks. I follow a path made of crushed stone, the crunching sound under my feet the only noise in this sector. The path leads to a small, hidden grotto, where a waterfall cascades into a shallow pool. The water is clear and cold, sourced from the station's massive recycling reservoirs. I kneel by the edge, dipping my fingers into the stream to check the temperature. It is perfect, exactly as the Solarian ecologists intended. The moss on the stones here is thick and soft, a carpet of velvet that has taken decades to cultivate. I notice a small metallic object, half buried in the greenery, and reach down to retrieve it. It is an old identification tag, the name long since faded by the constant mist. I wonder about the person who lost it, perhaps a gardener from a previous century who stood in this very spot, marveling at the same view. I place the tag in my pocket, a small piece of history to be catalogued later. The walk continues toward the southern quadrant, where the environment shifts once again. The trees here are shorter, with broad waxy leaves that capture the moisture from the air. I can smell the scent of damp earth and decaying foliage, a rich, heady aroma that reminds me of a world I have never visited. I reach a junction where 3 different paths meet, each leading to a different wing of the spire. I choose the one that follows the outer hull, where the glass is clearest. Beyond the pane, the stars are brilliant and unblinking, a measureless expanse of light and shadow. The Citadel feels small in comparison, a tiny island of life floating in the great, silent sea of the galaxy. I stop to inspect a structural support pillar, its surface covered in a fine layer of condensation. I wipe away the moisture, revealing the intricate etchings of the Prothean-inspired architecture. The lines are clean and precise, a testament to a level of engineering that we are still trying to fully understand. I run my hand over the cold stone, feeling the weight of the ages pressing against my palm. A distant chime echoes through the spire, signaling the transition to the final third of my shift. The tone is soft and melodic, designed to alert the workers without startling the wildlife. I take a deep breath. The atmosphere in this sector feeling particularly pure and revitalized. It is a good time to begin the final rounds, checking the emergency systems and securing the hatches for the morning cruise. I move toward the service lift, a small, open platform that will take me back to the main gantry levels. As I step onto the lift, I catch a glimpse of the Presidium floor far below, a shimmering lake of light in the heart of the station. The people there are waking up, starting their days while mine is slowly coming to an end. I press the button for the upper deck, the lift rising with a smooth, silent grace. The ascent is slow, allowing me to take in the full scale of the aviary one last time. From this height, the forest looks like a solid carpet of emerald, the paths and structures merely thin lines of silver threading through the green. It is a peaceful sight, a sanctuary of nature in the middle of a bustling metropolis. I feel a sense of pride in my work, knowing that I am one of the few who sees the station in this light. I reach the top level and step off the lift. My boots finding the familiar metal of the gantry. The atmosphere here is warmer again, the scent of the alpine sector fading as I move back toward the central hub. I check my datapad one last time, ensuring that all tasks have been logged and all systems are green. Everything is in order, the cycle of the night nearly complete. I head toward the final checkpoint, the sound of my footsteps echoing through the long, empty corridor. The walk is easy now, the path well worn and familiar. I pass a large window that looks out over the docking bays, where a few small ships are beginning to depart. They look like tiny sparks of light as they drift away from the station, heading out into the great unknown. I watch them for a moment, then turn my attention back to the path ahead, ready to finish my rounds and find my own rest. The corridor narrows as I move deeper into the maintenance backbone of the spire, where the walls are lined with conduits and humming transformers. The atmosphere here is different, lacking the floral scent of the gardens, replaced instead by the sharp, metallic tang of ionized particles. I run my gloved fingers along a bundle of cables, feeling the faint electric pulse of energy flowing through the station's veins. I reach the secondary filtration room, a chamber filled with the steady low murmur of rushing water. Large translucent cylinders stand like silent sentinels, their interiors glowing with a soft azure light as the fluids are cycled through the purifying layers. I check the pressure gauges on the third tank, noting that the levels are holding steady within the expected parameters. A small leak has formed near the base of a copper valve, a slow drip of recycled water hitting the deck with a measured tap. I pull a small torque wrench from my belt, the tool feeling weighted and solid in my grip as I tighten the fitting. The leak stops, the silence returning to the room, broken only by the distant thrum of the station's primary generators. I step through a heavy, pressurized door into the humid biome, where the heat is thick and immediate. The oxygen mix here is adjusted for the tropical species, a dense mist hanging over the ferns and broad-leafed trees. It is a different kind of quiet, one filled with the rustle of damp leaves and the occasional distant chirp of a nocturnal amphibian. I move along the elevated walkway, my boots making a dull, thudding noise on the rubberized surface. The path is wet with condensation, reflecting the amber glow of the low-intensity safety lights that line the railing. I stop to inspect a cluster of exotic orchids, their petals a vibrant shade of violet even in the dimness of the late watch. I check the nutrient injectors at the base of the trees, ensuring that the delivery systems are functioning without obstruction. The soil is rich and dark, a complex mixture of organic matter and synthetic minerals designed to sustain life from a dozen different worlds. I adjust the flow rate on one of the lines, the liquid fertilizer moving through the tube with a faint, gurgling tone. In the distance, the silhouette of the council tower rises against the artificial sky, its spire reaching toward the upper levels of the Presidium. It is a reminder of the scale of this place, a massive construction of metal and stone floating in the void. I feel a sense of perspective, a realization of how small my individual tasks are in the grand measure of the station's operations. A maintenance drone drifts past me, its optical sensor glowing with a soft red light as it scans the perimeter. It moves with a smooth, silent grace, its propulsion system making only the slightest whisper as it disappears into the foliage. I watch it for a moment, then continue my walk, the mist clinging to my suit like a fine, damp veil. I reach the observation deck that overlooks the central lagoon, the water a dark, mirror-like plane in the half-light. The reflections of the stars above dance on the surface, a shimmering pattern of silver and white that seems to shift with every breath. I lean against the railing, the metal cool against my forearms, and take a moment to simply observe the stillness. The air is still here. The fans in this sector operating at a reduced capacity during the quiet hours to conserve power. I can hear the faint metallic creak of the station's hull as it adjusts to the thermal stresses of the solar cycle. It is a time-worn noise, one that I have grown to find comforting over the many years of my service. I check my datapad, the screen illuminating my face with a pale white glow as I review the logs for the irrigation system. Everything is functioning perfectly, the automated routines handling the bulk of the work while I provide the necessary oversight. I record my findings, the digital keys clicking softly under my thumbs as I complete the entry. I move toward the service lift that will take me back to the lower gantry levels, my pace slow and unhurried. The ascent is steady, the lift rising through the layers of the aviary like a bubble in a stream. I look out through the glass panels, seeing the different biomes pass by in a blur of green and brown. I step off the lift and into the central hub, where the atmosphere is cooler and the lighting more clinical. This is the heart of the maintenance sector, a place of steel and glass where the station's life support systems are managed. I pass a group of cleaning drones, their brushes whirring as they scrub the deck plates with methodical precision. I reach the final checkpoint of my rounds, a small security station manned by a single, bored-looking officer. We exchange a brief nod, a silent acknowledgement of our shared vigil in the late hours of the shift. I scan my identification badge, the machine emitting a short, high-pitched beep as it confirms my clearance. I walk toward the locker rooms, the sound of my footsteps echoing through the long, empty corridor. The walls are lined with lockers and benches, the space feeling cavernous and lonely in the absence of the morning crew. I find my own locker, the metal door swinging open with a familiar metallic groan as I reach inside. I begin the process of cleaning my tools, a slow and deliberate task that allows me to decompress after the shift. I wipe down each wrench and screwdriver, removing the dust and moisture that has accumulated during my rounds. The metal shines in the fluorescent light, a testament to the care and attention I put into my work. I place the tools back in their designated slots, the drawer sliding shut with a satisfying weighted click. I remove my heavy maintenance vest, the sudden lightness of my shoulders a welcome relief after hours of walking. I hang the vest on the hook, the fabric still holding the faint scent of the alpine sector and the humid mist. I sit on the bench for a moment, my eyes closing as I listen to the distant hum of the station. It is a measureless environment, a place of infinite complexity and beauty that I am proud to call my workplace. I feel a sense of contentment, a knowledge that I have done my part to keep the station running smoothly for another day. I stand up and head toward the exit, the sliding doors opening with a soft pneumatic hiss. The corridor beyond is empty, the light dimmed to a comfortable level for the transition to the sleeping quarters. I walk toward my room, the path familiar and easy to follow even in my tired state. I reach my door and press the entry code, the lock disengaging with a soft mechanical snap. I step inside. The room small and functional, but it is my own sanctuary in the middle of this immense station. I prepare for bed, the quiet of the night finally catching up with me as I drift towards sleep, the cycle of the shift complete and the morning crew ready to take my place. I sit on the edge of the narrow cot, the frame giving a slight metallic protest under my weight. The floor plating is cool beneath my feet, a stark contrast to the lingering warmth of the maintenance decks. My room is small, barely more than a cabin, but it provides a necessary boundary between the duty and the rest. I reach out to the small control panel, my fingers tracing the smooth, matte finish of the buttons. With a soft press, the overhead illumination fades, leaving only the amber glow of the emergency floor strip. This dimness is familiar, a signal to the body that the long hours of the shift have finally concluded. Through the small, thick viewport, the Presidium stretches out like a jeweled ribbon. The artificial lake reflects the lights of the upper spires, a shimmering mirror in the heart of the station. I watch a single transport shuttle drift across the distance, its navigation lights blinking in a slow, steady measure. Down there, the diplomats and the elite are likely still awake, finishing their late meals or attending to matters of state. Up here, in the worker blocks, the tempo is much different, governed by the needs of the machine. We are the ghosts in the walls, the ones who ensure the climate remains steady and the water continues to flow. I think of the birds in the aviary, now tucked away in the artificial branches of the trees. They do not know of the vacuum that waits just beyond the hull, or the complex systems that keep their climate perfect. To them, this is the only existence, a sheltered paradise maintained by unseen hands. There is a certain comfort in that ignorance, a simplicity that I sometimes envy when the work is hard. But then I remember the view from the maintenance catwalks, the sight of the nebula stretching out into the infinite. I see the station for what it is, a fragile spark of life in the cold, silent reach of the galaxy. I reach for the glass of water on my bedside table, the liquid trembling slightly with the pulse of the station core. It is a tiny, circular ripple, a visual reminder of the immense power required to keep this ring spinning. I watch the light catch the surface, a miniature display of physics and engineering working in perfect harmony. My hands feel weighted, the skin slightly dry from the recycled atmosphere of the lower levels. I rub them together, the friction creating a faint, rasping note in the stillness of the cabin. It is a minor discomfort, one that will be forgotten once the exhaustion finally takes hold. I pull the grey woven blanket over my legs, the fabric feeling coarse but strangely grounding. It smells faintly of the laundry facility, a scent of industrial soap and heated metal. This is the scent of home, or at least the closest thing I have found in this sector of the station. I lean my head back against the wall padding, the hexagonal patterns pressing into my skin. In the distance, I can hear the muffled murmur of the ventilation system, a constant presence that I have learned to ignore. It is the breath of the station, a cycle of oxygen and filtration that never truly stops. I wonder if the keepers are still moving through the gardens, their silent forms gliding across the grass. They have no need for sleep, no need for the quiet reflection that fills these final minutes of my day. They are as much a part of the Citadel as the steel and the glass, eternally bound to their tasks. Perhaps there is a keeper near the waterfall I repaired earlier, checking the flow of the stream. I hope the repair holds, that the water remains clear and the pump continues its steady cadence. It is a small contribution, a single drop in the ocean of maintenance, but it matters to the birds. I close my eyes, and for a moment I can still feel the vibration of the lift under my boots. The memory of the shift persists, a series of images and sensations that play across the back of my eyelids. I see the green of the trees, the grey of the pipes, and the blue of the artificial sky. This universe is so vast, filled with wonders that I will never see, yet I am content here. I have my tools, my rounds, and this small space to call my own at the end of the day. There is a dignity in the mundane, a quiet pride in knowing that the station is safe for another cycle. I feel the pull of sleep, a slow and steady tide that begins to wash away the thoughts of the day. My breathing slows, matching the steady drone of the life support systems in the walls. The tension in my shoulders finally dissolves, leaving me light and unburdened in the dimness. The stars outside the viewport are steady, their light unfiltered by the atmosphere of a planet. They are distant and cold, but they are also beautiful, a reminder of the scale of the landscape we inhabit. We are all just travelers on this great spinning ring, moving through the void together. I think of the morning crew who will soon be waking up to take over the vigil. They will walk the same corridors, check the same gauges, and listen to the same hum of the station. We are a chain linked by the shared responsibility of keeping this place alive. The water in my glass has stopped rippling, the station core finding a moment of perfect stability. The room is still, the only movement being the slow drift of dust motes in the amber light. It is a moment of total peace, a pause in the endless activity of the Citadel. I am ready now. The weight of the day finally lifted from my mind. The bed is warm, the cabin is quiet, and the work is done for now. I let the last of the thoughts drift away, like a shuttle disappearing into the nebula. The dawn of the next shift is a distant thought, as the consciousness finally yields to the pull of the dreamless deep. Thank you for spending this evening with me. Until next time on Canon and Calm, sleep well.